in Zoom or?
Yeah, one professor.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 2023 meet of Natpragas USA Sikh Women Book Club. Before we start our main flow of the event today, I'd like to briefly set the context with regards to the background of Natpragas and the Sikh Women Book Club effort in particular. As we know, Natpragas is an organization that is committed to the cause of exploring the Shabad tradition. And the organization was started about 3 decades ago in Sri Amritsar, Punjab. And the organization has been continuously, relentlessly making efforts towards deepening the tradition of cultural, literature, and philosophy-based exchanges and contemplations. In 2021, Natpragas effort was launched in the USA, and similar activities have been embarked upon from the Natpragas USA standpoint as well. The Sikh Women Book Club effort was launched in 2022, and the vision here is to encourage and support the interests in reading and experiencing important text as a sorority of women, and for Natpragas USA to provide a platform where women can come forth and talk about the books and the imports that they've had in reading these books, so that we can all share what we're learning and understanding from these texts. Because when we share and collectively contemplate on the imports of these texts, we are deepening the tradition of the word, the Sandhu tradition. In 2022, our journey encompassed exploring a few texts from the domains of creative imagination and mysticism. And in 2023, we have set out to read a few notable texts from the knowledge tradition across the world. In 2023, we had the opportunity to hear about Lotus Sutra. We heard about Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Minhajul Abidin. And today we have with us our fourth speaker, Gurpreet Kaur. She's going to talk to us about the important Buddhist text, Dhammapada. Dhammapada is a text of high place in the Buddhist literature and Buddhist canon. It's one of the most beloved, accessible texts, which is especially Buddhism. It's said that it's a very dear text to monks, that they almost all of them read it. That's a claim I've actually read somewhere about this important text, Dhammapada. And it's a collection of verses which were known to have been promulgated by none other than Sakyamuni Gautam Buddha himself to his disciples. And in some point in time, the text was actually written, converted from the oral form of being passed from one age to the other. The text was actually written down. So with this backdrop, I will give the floor to Gurpreet Kaur to give us a review of the text, and then we will follow with question answers towards the end. Gurpreet.
Thank you, Harjot. So without any much ado, I'll just start. So like Harjot said, and you've summarized it so nicely, today I'm going to further summarize the book called the Dhammapada. So I begin by saying that it is a collection of sayings of the Buddha in a verse form. And as it's been said, it is one of the most widely read and best known Buddhist scripture. It's been called a guide to humanity by scholars like Max Muller, and by many other scholars. It's been highly appreciated. The universality of its message and the depth of its teaching and the refined simplicity of its language has earned it an honored place in the world's literature. So further, the word dhampad means the path of dharma. Dhamma as dharma and the pad as the path. So for the path of dharma, for truth, of righteousness, and of the
Gurpreet, I think your audio and video froze for some time. It's like, let me contact her on the side and let her. They had a power outage. So Gurpreet is trying to call in via her cell phone. So it's going to take her a couple minutes. So one thing I found out is that there are several versions of Dhammapada available on archive.org. And they've been written by scholars in from countries such as Burma and Bangladesh, etc. So it's very interesting that in the eastern part of Asia.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
and
can
can
hear
you see me?
We can hear you, Gurpreet. Can you hear
Okay.
us?
I can. Can you see me too, Harjot?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. So I guess you can see me now. Let me just blur this. Can you see me now?
Not yet, Gurpreet.
No? Okay, let's see. I'm so sorry for.
Oh, no, no problem. This is not your doing. This was totally unanticipated.
Hold on, let me. I think I can log in from my computer now. So let me try from there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah.
Okay. You
We
can hear me.
we
Okay.
can see.
Sorry about that. The light went off and now the generator is on, but I apologize for this. Okay. All right. So I was saying that it means it means like the path of dharma, which is the dham is the dharma and pad is the path for truth, of righteousness, and of the central law that all of life is one life. This book consists of 423 verses in 26 chapters, spoken by the Buddha on 300 different occasions throughout his 45 years of teaching the Dhamma. It forms the essence of the ethics of Buddhist philosophy, as we all know. The Buddha did not leave a static structure of belief that we can affirm and be done with. His teaching is an ongoing path, a way of perfection, which anyone can follow to the highest good, it says. The book Dhammapada is a map of this journey. We can start wherever we are, but as on any road, the scenery, our values, our aspirations, our understanding of life around us changes as we make progress. These verses can be read and appreciated simply as wise philosophy. As such, as they are part of, it can really benefit us as they are part of the great literature of the world. But for those who would follow it to the end, the Dhammapada is sure a guide, nothing less than the highest goal life can offer, which is self-realization. This is what the main motive of this book, it's the self-realization. Born in freedom and stamped with the joy of self-realization, these early testament of the Vedic sages are clear antecedents of the Buddha's voice. They contain no trace of world denial, no shadow of fear, no sense of diffidence about our place in an alien universe. So far from deprecating physical existence, they teach us that self-realization means health, vitality, long life, and a harmonious balance of inward and outward activity. They proclaim that human destiny lies ultimately in human hands for those who master the passion of the mind. It says, we are what our deep driving desire is. As our deep driving desire is, so is our will. And as our will is, so is our deed. And as our deed is, so is our destiny. The book says our life is shaped by our mind. For what we become, what we think. So this is the essence of Buddha's universe and the whole of Dhammapada. If we can get hold of the thinking process, we can actually redo our personality, remake ourselves. So destructive ways of thinking can be rechanneled, constructive channels can be deepened, all through right effort and meditation. So there's an example they have referred to. As irrigators lead water to their fields, as archers make their arrows straight, as carpenters cut wood, the wise shape their lives. So while I was reading this, I came across Werner von Braun's text, which says, the universe is hostile only when you do not know its laws. To those who know and obey, the universe is friendly. When understood, the Buddha's universe too is anything but alien and inhibiting. It is a world full of hope, where everything we need to do can be done and everything that matters is within human reach. It is the world where kindness, unselfishness, non-violence, and compassion for all creatures achieve what self-interest and arrogance cannot. And those who attain the island of nirvana can live thereafter in the sea of change without being swept away. So, and they insist on knowing not the learning of facts, but the direct experience of truth, the only reality underlying life's multiplicities. This is not an intellectual achievement. Knowledge means realization. And to know the truth, one must make it real. must live it out in our thoughts, words, and action. From that, everything else of value follows. So now the Dhammapada is best known in its original Pali form. It's called Pali, P-A-L-I, which is its original form. It has, like I said earlier, 423 verses in 26 chapters and contain part of Buddha's teaching, which can be grasped and put into practice by everyone, as said, and by following the disciples of the Eightfold Path. So these Eightfold Paths are the right understanding, the right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So this is the one book which becomes part of one's life and means more than 1,000 others. So Dhammapada is one such book. And its method for transforming our life is given right in the first chapter. Now we come to the chapter 1. Chapter 1 presents us a pair of possibilities for human conduct, each leading to a different kind of destiny. So there are 10 verse pairs, and usually it's the negative possibility, the kind of conduct catering to conditioned human wants, that is presented first. Then comes the positive one, which runs contrary to the human nature. So the first alternative usually is easily accomplished and temporarily satisfying. I want to read it from the book to make more sense for what I'm saying. So in chapter 1, like how it says, so there are 2 verses of the same thing. It says, experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows. And then it says in the second verse, experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows. So, like in the first verse, it says, if we speak or act with an impure mind, suffering follows. And if we act with a pure mind, happiness follows. So this is what the first chapter they're referring to, like on different verses. So always the second verse, however, goes against the conditioning of the pleasure principle. And to implement it requires hard effort on the Eightfold Path. But in the long run, the sweet and easy way leads to more suffering, and the hard way to nirvana and freedom. So Buddha can only point us the way. The hard choice is we must make it ourselves again and again until it becomes a part of our personality. So we have to choose the right path in order to, to make our personality like that. And he further says that if one enjoys a lesser happiness now, beholds a greater one later. So let him leave aside the lesser to gain the greater. This is the greater happiness. The second, more difficult path, which will come to any human being who recognizes the choice there is in every action, even in every thought, and has the will and discrimination to choose wisely. That person will attain the greater happiness. Here, I would like to refer to Robert Frost's famous lines from The Road Not Taken. And there's a book called The Road Not Taken, and it provides a perfect model for the crossroads at which every human being stands. It says, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I. 2 roads are diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I think he said it very well in context to what we discussed earlier. Also, Buddha also calls, it's been said that Buddha calls this as swimming with the current when we choose the right or easy path, When we choose the easy path, it's like swimming with the current. But to find happiness, one has to go against the current, against every selfish motive. That's what the true happiness is. And of course, training the mind means meditation, the regular discipline of concentrating the mind and making it one, pointed at will. So meditation is another form of, to control the mind. Meditating earnestly and striving for nirvana, they attain the highest joy and freedom. The book says, if you meditate, pure in mind and kind in deeds, leading a disciplined life in harmony with the dharma, you will grow in glory. So if, with pure mind and kind deeds, you will grow in glory. If you meditate earnestly through spiritual disciplines, you can make an island for yourself that no flood can overwhelm. Nothing can, nothing can destroy you. The earnest, they say, are always respected, and the indolent never. So the earnest spiritual aspirant fearing sloth advances like a fire, burning all fetters. Such seekers will never fall back. They are nearing nirvana. So they are on the right path. So, they are on the earnest right path. So in chapter 3 is the control of the mind. That's the theme of chapter 3. And it is the most challenging, the most rewarding of human task, controlling the mind. Buddha does not underestimate its difficulties. The mind, he suggests, has a depth far greater than the deepest sea, and all the way down it churns with emotional tempest of which we are barely conscious, but which virtually dictate thought and behavior. Mind actually, as we all know, is very powerful. According to Buddha, we don't need any hell or afterlife to look for the devil. The mind itself, quick, fickle, and exceedingly difficult to focus, is the real devil. In its depth lie untapped sources of great power, desires, and drives of such magnitude that the mind is rarely under any control. It simply moves about as it likes. So, so it moves everywhere. So to train these forces, or the method of training the mind, is meditation. Now, to visualize what happens in meditation is to think of the raw stuff of consciousness as clay. So now I'm giving you an example of what happens in meditation is to think, the consciousness as the clay, shaped on a potter's wheel of the mind. The shape this clay has already taken are strong desires, fears, attitude, and aspirations, every habitual way of thinking that we have, which determines a person's behavior. So what meditation does is meditation slowly allow access to a level of awareness where these rigid shapes can be softened and made pliable again. So until finally consciousness becomes like amorphous clay, and then the mind has no habits. Then the mind rests in its native state. It's calm, it's clear, it's adaptable, and endlessly responsive. So it becomes unconditioned, spontaneous, and free. So that's how it's been described. So one who has truly learned to meditate, the Buddha says, can aim thoughts with the accuracy and power of a skilled archer. Instead of thoughts going in all directions, each one finds it. So when we meditate, each one will find it marks. It like goes directly there when we do it right. So that's the mind, the power of mind, and controlling the mind, and how meditation can help us do that. I want to talk about now going to chapter 6 in verse 89, which mentions the 7 fields of enlightenment. And they are mindfulness, vigor, joy, serenity, concentration, equanimity, and penetration of dharma. So that is seeing the workings of dharma everywhere. In Buddhism, enlightenment is an instantaneous experience in which mental activity is momentarily suspended. So mental activity is suspended momentarily, completely, and consciousness comes into full wakefulness. They say Bodhi is not nirvana. It is a temporary stilling of the mind. We still our mind, which brings illumination of consciousness, which is nirvana. Only when one is completely absorbed in one's character and conduct would the Buddha call a person truly awake. So that's, that's what it speaks about. He says, if you find no one to support you on a spiritual path, walk alone. You don't need any, just walk alone, just concentrate, but do it, walk. I would like to read it again from the book where it says, the vice, the chapter is called the vice. If you see someone wise who can steer you away from the wrong path, follow that person. As you would one who can reveal hidden treasures, only good can come out of it. And then it says, verse 77, let them admonish or instruct or restrain you from what is wrong. They will be loved by the good, but disliked by the bad. Then it says, make friends with those who are good and true, not with those who are bad and false. Then it says, to follow the dharma revealed by the noble ones is to live in joy with a serene mind. It says, as irrigators lead water where they want, as archers made their arrows straight, as carpenters carve wood, the wise shape their mind. I think that was very nicely said. And then further it says, as a solid rock cannot be moved by the wind, the wise are not shaken by praise or blame. When they listen to the word of dharma, their mind become clear and calm like the water of a still lake. I think these are really nice verses from the book. Then the following chapters do talk about thought, flower, old age, self, happiness, pleasure, hunger, thirst, Brahman, and others. Though they seemingly, they're separated across, they are separated, but fundamentally, they're like the same thread runs through all the verses. Which becomes perceptible on reading the text. So in chapter 14, the awakened one, in verse 184, where Buddha calls patience a supreme spiritual discipline. But the kind of patience he's referring to is not just a matter of keeping your temper when someone is late for the appointment. It is deeply rooted resolution not to swerve from dharma, even in the face of a threat to life itself. So that's the kind of patience he's talking about. Thus, it connotes infinite compassion, unqualified goodwill for all creatures in all circumstances. And then I would actually again like to read the book and to refer this from the book, and would like to read some pages where it says, the awakened one, it says, he's the conqueror who can never be conquered, into whose conquest no other can ever enter. By what track can you reach him, the Buddha, the awakened one, free from all conditioning? How can you describe him in human language, the Buddha, the awakened one, free from the net of desires and the pollution of passions, free from all conditioning? Even the gods emulate those who are awakened, established in meditation. They live in freedom, at peace. It is hard to obtain human birth, harder to live like a human being, harder still to understand the dharma, but hardest of all is to attain the nirvana. So I think this is really powerful when it says it's hard to obtain human birth, harder to live like a human being, harder still to understand the dharma, but hardest to attain nirvana. So this is how I would like to. Um, this is what I got from the book, and I would like to summarize this by reading the 4 meditative states that the book talks about. And again, I'm referring to the book. I'm referring to the book a lot this time. Sorry, but so they say on that night, he tells us he seated himself for meditation with the resolve not to get up again until he had attained his goal. Then he continues. In the state of meditation, the 4 meditative states he talk about. So the first one is I roused unflinching determination, focused my attention, made my body calm and motionless, and my mind concentrated and one-pointed. Then he says, standing apart from all selfish urges and all states of mind harmful to spiritual progress, I entered the first meditative state where the mind, though not quite free from divided and diffused thought, experiences lasting joy. By putting an end to divided and diffused thought, with my mind stilled in one-pointed absorption, I entered the second meditative state, quiet, free from any wave of thought, and experienced the lasting joy of the unitive state. As that joy became more intense and pure, I entered the third meditative state, becoming consciousness in the very depth of the unconscious. Even my body was flooded with that joy of what the Noble One says, they live in abiding joy, who has stilled the mind and are fully awake. Then going beyond the duality of pleasure and pain and the whole field of memory-making forces in the mind, I dwell at last in the fourth meditative state, utterly beyond the reach of thought, in that realm of complete purity which can be reached only through detachment and contemplation. It says, this was my first successful breaking forth like a chick breaking out of its shell. It says the last quiet phrase is deadly. Our everyday life, it says we are like living in an eggshell. We have no more idea of what life is like then a chicken has before it hatches. So excitement and depression, fortune and misfortune, pleasure and pain are storms in a tiny private shell-bound realm, which we take to be the whole of existence. It says, yet we can break out of this shell and enter a new world. So for a moment, the Buddha draw aside the curtain of space and time and shows us and tells us what it is to see the other dimension. This is what he's describing and showing us. So like how Neil Armstrong, when he went to the moon, how he showed us that, how Earth is, how he can see the Earth from the moon just hanging in the universe. And, this is what Buddha is trying to show us, the other dimension, the other side of the dimension, that we should break our shell and see that. And that can be only achieved through self-realization, through controlling the mind, through meditation, following the right path. So it says the Buddha's voice reaches us from no distance at all, yet from a place much more remote. He's at the center of consciousness now, beyond the thinking apparatus itself. As in some science fiction story, he has slipped through a kind of black hole into a parallel universe, it says, and returned to tell the rest of us what lies outside the boundaries of the mind. I think, this is very well said. self-realization, as I said, meditation with right character leads us to the stage which is called nirvana, freedom or breaking that eggshell. And we first need to cleanse our mind and, to avoid all evils, to cultivate good. So working on self and working on one's own mind. This is my summary of the book. And this is how I would like to finish the book. Thank you so much. I hope I made sense.
Well, I must say that you've taken at least me into a different realm, and it's so hard, Gurpreet, for me to come out of that state and say words that are befitting the effort. I mean, I see that I'm in a bit of I don't want to come out of that stage in which you've put in, because I believe that's the most well-deserved attribution of honor to your speech. And yet, because I'm serving in the position of a chair of the meet today, that I have to utter the words. So I would like to apologize for needing to stick with my second role. But had I not been on the camera, I would have taken this opportunity to perhaps, read Sukhmani Sahib. So, I mean, I think how you read the text, what you shared with us, certainly made a very profound import in our imaginations. I had the opportunity to scan some of the pictures here that are coming on the screen, and I saw that what was emanating from the faces and the body language of who are attending, it was a different kind of a vibe that I've seen come elsewhere in other sessions that we've had. And there's definitely attributes to the type of text that, you've taken us through. And I'd like to actually invite the attendees to share any comments or any experiences that they were put through as Gurpreet was sharing with us, her takeaways and her learnings.
This is actually a really, really deep book. And I guess one read will, I guess it needs to be, we need to make it the purpose of our life, or need to read it again and again to go uncover the deeper words that this book is, suggesting. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to answer any questions if, anyone has.
What I would like to just share before I actually start calling people one by one is that my personal experience, when you were actually talking about the 4 meditative stages, when you started talking about the 3rd stage, where you said that the consciousness, it assumes a form where it speaks in a way that it didn't speak before.
Yeah.
So like the language of the 3rd stage of the consciousness is very different than perhaps what we speak in our normal lives. And it's very interesting that, we have to go deep down to find the words that are actually capable of the enlightenment process, meaning the process of enlightenment is driven by deep digging amongst ourselves. And we really have to go very deep to be able to actually find the vocabulary of enlightenment. And the visual that came to my mind as you were taking us through these stages were actually the layers of the earth, where, on the lithosphere, the crust of the earth, we dig, we find water, it gives us peace. We keep digging more and more. And we find some real hidden gems and jewels there, which weren't there in the crust layer. So the jewels and gems get exposed to us when we go down the mantle, perhaps. But the layers of the innermost core of earth, no one has been able to reach those.
Yeah.
No human effort has really been able to reach, or maybe the reachings that have happened to those deeper parts of the core have happened to only a few, and in very specific circumstances.
Mhm.
So it's not easy to go down to the deepest layers of one's own interior, if we take the example of us being the earth itself.
Definitely, definitely. Like it says, mind is so powerful, you know, that it doesn't let us reach to that level. It's like going in all directions. Even when we are meditate, it like requires deep meditation, very, very deep meditation. And even our thoughts and our action needs to be on the right path in order to achieve that meditation, or you know, the level of that deepness that we are referring to. And the mind itself has so much power, like how we are referring to earth. Even if we try to go down to the core, it's so hard to go down because of the heat and because of the, you know, the gravity or the danger or the darkness that we feel within, you know, so we it seems like when we go so deep down and trying to control the mind, there are like factors like the negative factors are there too. So we have to overcome those two in order to go, you know, to find the core or to see the core. So yes, it can be achieved with a strong, you know, that's how the third and the fourth stage will lead us to, and then finally breaking that eggshell. It can be possible, but it requires dedication and you know, perseverance. It says like you know, continuous effort, like go, you know, just hitting the spot again and again and reaching and, you know, going there deep down there. Then we can reach to the next level, what this book is talking about. I hope I'm making any sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's wonderful. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So thank you. First of all, thank you, Nath Pargas, for referring and putting me on this book. I appreciate it so much because I would have never picked it. Arjot, you have suggested it, and now I can see, you know, what you meant by it, and I'll read it again and again. And thank you so much for your support. I always appreciate it.
It's always a
You're
pleasure.
doing
It's a
such a good effort, and you know, no words. Kudos to you.
kudos to you,
Yeah.
Gurpreet. You took us to a different world today. You did.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like
So,
to actually call upon Amandeep to make any comments. It feels like there are some thoughts in his mind that he wants to share. The smile that he has given to us kind of confirm my claim.
he's a scholar, and I'm sure he has a lot to offer.
Uh, First of all, thank you very much for this enlightening and a deep reflective talk that you have actually given to all of us. This is a text which has always been there, but for some reason it has not been discussed so obviously, so deliberately in academic circles as well as in many of the religious circles as well. I'm sure it's been discussed in the Buddhist circles, but at a more universal level, it needs a little more reflection on ourselves. So the basic thing that I actually get from this particular document is that it's more of a self discovery. That's the you know the at the back of this book, probably like internalization of the external world, which is usually done through senses, but you can also do it through perspectives. And when you actually internalize that external world through your perspective, you actually make a new way of looking at the same thing. So you enlighten the world outside through this process of internalization of the same world inside your mind. So So this is something, the way it talks about the archer, the symbolism that's been drawn here. So the thing is that at many points you feel that language is not enough to convey the real essence of the matter, and then that's why we need a symbol which can relay or which can contribute in adding more productive meaning to what the intuitive meaning of which is usually left behind when we talk in objective language. So that's why the language has its own and its own barriers if it is only related with the objective communication of only the message. So beyond that objective communication, there is also something which is inside in, in the inner core of language, is actually through how you make the world inside you to make it more communicative and more relatable in your experience than just being just a carrier of a message or So you internalize and make it your own self. So how experience get developed. So that like it's like a body which has its own formation from within itself. So that the body of that language, the body of that knowledge that makes itself from in its inner core, and actually that body is like a more enunciation of that enunciation of your own self. So that is probably a really a good insight that you brought in this. So there is a lot more other meanings that I probably have noted those down. So the way they define the experiences and perspectives are how they are constructed, and the way the consciousness is a clay that you mentioned. So that was a really important part for how to make it more how to shape it, the way the steps are defined of the shaping of the consciousness, the 7 steps that you were discussing about. So those are really great insights which we captured from this talk. So in fact, congratulations to you, and the way you have presented it has also been a more experience than just convey of a message or structuring of a talk. It's more of a realized experience, which I could even see as a presenter through which you might have yourself undergone while making this presentation. So that's a really good reflection that you gave us on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to add this, that yes, this book has so much to offer. I could only touch the surface, like how we peel the onions, peeling it slice by slice, so I'm trying to touch it, but there is so much deep. That's why it's called one of the greatest book of philosophy by most of the European scholars. But thank you for appreciating and all the kind words. I appreciate it. Thank you. So
we see some audiences, youth audience on this call today. Would any one of you want to make any comments?
So I didn't really have a comment, but I did have a question for you. That is, like, in your opinion, what did you think was the biggest obstacle to becoming awakened?
Biggest obstacle in my what I would say is the mind, because it's the mind. We need to like focus it, like when I was saying, the controlling the mind. once we attain that by our behaviors and of course our daily day-to-day life and what we think, and once we achieve that, the meditation becomes a little meditation. We can attain next level of meditative state. So I would, to answer your question shortly, is controlling the mind. We need to control the mind in the sense, once we start controlling the mind through meditation, the first stage, we can control thoughts. Instead of going in all directions, our thoughts will focus on one particular goal. And so like how they give an example, like how the archer like darts an arrow, it goes directly to where we want it to go. So that's what we need to do, controlling the mind. Yeah, makes sense?
Yeah,
Gurpreet?
thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right.
I had a question too.
Yes.
Is there anything within the Dhammapada that you found to be particularly surprising or something that stood out to you?
I think it's a self-realization. We don't realize, we tend to judge everyone else but ourselves mostly. So self-realization. They say if you're alone, just walk the path alone. But do realize. So they say a silly person who knows that the person is not wise is still considered to be wise than a person who is not wise and consider himself to be wise is considered to be a fool. So realizing yourself what you are, and then choosing the path and going on the taking the right step is what I figured out we need to do, what I took, and what was very took me by self-realization. We need to understand ourselves, who we are, because we have we need to truly judge ourselves first. So that's the Thank you. That these are really good questions. Thank you so much, Guneet and Jasnoor.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uday Singh, do you
Alright.
have any question, moment?
Yeah, I was just thinking, are there any specific things that stood out to you when you were reading the Dhammapada that you saw you could like kind of relate it to maybe some of your own personal religious experiences, like something that maybe like when you read it, you really knew what it was talking about and it truly connected with something which you yourself had known or understood.
So thank you for the question. It's a good one. Relating to Sikhism, I think all religion, like how they talk about building your own character, So for me, I would say how I can help myself in being a good, related, how I can help my religious thoughts. What I take from this book is meditation, like breaking out that shell, the 4 stages, which if we all can uh, perform and feel it, we can, I think, be able to understand Guru Granth Sahib or whatever the teachings that our religion is trying to tell us. Maybe we'll be able to think from the point that our gurus are teaching us. But the thing is, we are not being able to understand what they're saying just because we are not concentrating enough. So concentration, meditation will, of course, help us understand our literature, our culture, what has been, what they're trying to tell us. So this I would, yeah.
I agree totally, Gurpreet. I personally also believe that it depends on which stage of consciousness we are at. That if we are at stage 1 versus stage 3 of consciousness, what the Shabad reveals to us is going to be different. Because
Yes.
those are new horizons that become available the more deeper we go inside, that new horizons and new divya drishtis become accessible to us, which were not accessible when we were on the superficial layers of our own consciousness.
Not at all. Yeah. Very true. Yes.
Also, I do feel that these questions that the kids are raising are, in fact, questions for everybody, not for just the paper reader. So, how do we ourselves feel about when we read through this and understand it? That's a self-discovery rather than, more of an intellectual grilling.
Yeah, true. These are actually really, really good questions, like how kids are thinking in that level. And, it's like, I appreciate it. So
I was, we're coming to the end of the talk, but I would like to just convey this, Gurpreet, that, when you went offline for a few minutes, I was sharing with this group here that I found some real diverse sort of translations and experiencings of Dhammapada written by scholars of countries such as Burma, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. They're accessible on archive.org. So I think those are some real good resources to see how their own personal experiences have been enunciated through their different translation approaches.
yes,
When we read different translations, we are becoming mukhatib with different experiencings. Right? So
definitely.
I
Yes, no,
encourage
thank you.
all of us to.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Harjot.
Yeah, no, thank you. This was a wonderful, wonderful session. And I feel like the highest accolade that I can give to you, Gurpreet, for your effort is actually a well-meaning but a highly gravid silence. A silence that's really pregnant with pure appreciation and pure thankfulness.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, we're now in the final moments of our session today. My next submission here is that we will meet in now the month of August. I will convey the date and timing of our meet shortly on the Sikh Women Book Club WhatsApp group that we have. I'll be presenting in the next talk, and the book that I'll be presenting about is one of the highest revered texts of the Christian tradition, right after the Bible. It's called The Pilgrim's Progress, which was written by John Bunyan. It's a text about which I'll be talking, and I hope to see all of you in that talk. And please do subscribe to our Facebook and our Twitter and our Instagram handles. The communication for all our forthcoming events are communicated to the community via those channels. And as always, we appreciate each one of us in the community who are with us. We are collectively forging to rediscovering ourselves so we can unveil to ourselves more of the Shabad tradition. With those thoughts and comments, I'd like to make one final thankfulness note to Gurpreet. Gurpreet, thank you so much for your efforts, the research and the experience that you took the audience through today was deeply appreciated.
Thank you, Harjot.